from Mike Tyson, who said,
It's still a good sport. I still think it's a good sport. It's just the officials that make the sport better.
to Oscar De La Hoya, who had words for Tyson's most controversial matchup,
While watching it, I felt disgusted.
to Larry Holmes, whose disappointment in current boxers was palpable.
They don't have no skills.
We are diving into what boxing legends think of the sport today, beginning with Smokin' Joe Frazier. The relentless Philadelphia warrior emerged from the most humble of beginnings, working in a slaughterhouse before his powerful left hook and indomitable spirit carried him to Olympic gold in 1964 and ultimately to the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. From 1970 to 1973, Frazier reigned supreme, engaging in what many historians consider the greatest trilogy in boxing history against Muhammad Ali, including their legendary 1971 Fight of the Century at Madison Square Garden. Frazier's fighting style was the very embodiment of blue-collar toughness and work ethic. He would bob and weave, slip inside his opponent's punches, and then unleash devastating combinations to the body and head with a ferocity that seemed almost superhuman. His battles were 15-round marathons that tested not just physical ability, but the very depths of human courage and endurance. In an interview conducted shortly before his passing in 2011, Frazier expressed profound concern and confusion about the direction modern heavyweight boxing had taken. When asked about the emergence of gigantic fighters like Nikolai Valuev, who stood 7 feet tall and weighed over 300 pounds, Frazier questioned whether such extreme size actually benefited the sport or whether it fundamentally compromised what boxing was supposed to be about.
The size, I don't really understand it. I mean, it seems like, I would say they want to take off the game and not work. You understand? Otherwise, I think the majority of guys who in the game today, he probably can't run a mile. That's all. He probably can't run a mile. He's probably out of shape so bad.
This assessment cut to the heart of what Frazier saw as a critical deficiency in modern fighters, a fundamental lack of proper conditioning and work ethic. He attributed this decline to inexperienced trainers who hadn't been through the rigors of old-school preparation themselves and therefore couldn't instill the necessary discipline in their charges. But Frazier's critique went beyond mere conditioning concerns. He fundamentally questioned the authenticity of modern boxing styles themselves. When discussing fighters like the Klitschko brothers and their methodical, often clinch-heavy approach, Frazier dismissed such tactics as not real boxing.
The wrestling part, I don't really think that could be a good part. Knock him down and then go and jump on him and beat him up. That's not a style. That's like just craziness. You know what I mean? It's just doing something to the game that's not real.
Moving on to the cold-eyed destroyer from Brockton, Marvin Hagler. The bald-headed, marvelous Marvin Hagler from Brockton, Massachusetts, endured one of the most arduous journeys to championship, glory in boxing history. He fought 50 professional fights before finally getting his first title shot, defending his middleweight crown 12 times against a murderer's row of opponents during the legendary Four Kings era of the 1980s, when he, Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Thomas Hearns created some of the most memorable and brutal encounters the sport has ever witnessed. Hagler's southpaw style, combined with his ability to switch stances seamlessly, his granite chin, and his absolutely devastating power made him a nightmare matchup for anyone in his weight class. When Hagler spoke about modern boxing in 2014, his frustration with the current state of affairs was palpable and unfiltered.
Are boxers as hungry, do you think, as they used to be?
Well, to me, my opinion is that they're not. But, in today's era, okay, there's a lot of money, and it's so easier for these guys now to get a shot at the title than when I was coming up.
But his reflections quickly turned to what he perceived as fundamental deficiencies in contemporary fighters. He highlighted how modern boxers receive title opportunities after just 13 to 20 fights, a stark contrast to his own grueling path.
I mean, it took me 50 fights. I mean, these guys went 13, 14, 20 fights, and they were in for a title shot and being able to get a big payday,
Hagler saw this easier access to championships as directly linked to the influence of money in modern boxing, creating a system where financial considerations trumped meritocratic progression. The result, in his assessment, was a revolving door of champions who held titles briefly before losing them.
They stay there for about 1 year, and then there's another champion. So you get confused because these guys keep changing all the time. A real champion, I think that once the public gets to know you, you know, then that's where your fame and everything starts.
He observed that many modern fighters seem to lack the fundamental discipline and obsessive dedication that characterized his generation.
I mean, I see a lot of people that's not like myself, where, you know, we think about boxing 24 hours a day, you know, so that was a big difference what I see in some of the fighters.
Next up, the boxer known throughout the boxing world as Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran. Born in 1951 in the slums of Panama, Duran's street fighting mentality and absolutely savage aggression in the ring made him a terror across 4 weight divisions. His career, spanning an incredible 33 years from 1968 to 2001, saw him amass 103 victories with 70 knockouts, including his legendary 1980 upset victory over Sugar Ray Leonard. Despite the infamous No Mas rematch, where Duran quit against Leonard, his legacy as one of the toughest, most skilled fighters in history remained largely intact, particularly given his incredible longevity and his ability to remain competitive even into his 40s. When it comes to assessing modern fighters, Duran has been characteristically blunt and uncompromising. He has gone so far as to claim that even though I was 50 when I retired, I would gladly have beaten the crap out of all the deadbeats in the sport. The same goes with the boxers today: Pacquiao, Mayweather, Marquez, and Morales. This isn't mere bluster from an old champion living in the past. Duran genuinely believes that the fighters of his era possessed a toughness, a willingness to engage in brutal exchanges, and a fighting spirit that is largely absent in contemporary boxing. His assessment of the long-anticipated Mayweather-Pacquiao superfight was equally dismissive.
Bueno, esta pelea para mí ya no tiene tanto entusiasmo como tenía antes, pero se tiene que hacer porque todo el mundo quiere verla.
Duran expressed skepticism about both fighters, questioning whether fear was preventing the matchup from happening sooner.
Y yo no sé si tiene miedo Pacquiao o tiene miedo Mayweather, no sé qué es lo que está pasando, pero esa pelea se debió de hacer hace mucho tiempo cuando había bastante ánimo. Hay ánimo, pero ya para mí el mismo ánimo no es el mismo ánimo de antes.
His views stem from a career defined by relentless infighting, a style where he would get inside an opponent's reach and maul them with vicious hooks and uppercuts, an approach that seems increasingly rare in an era dominated by outside fighting and defensive boxing. For Duran, modern boxing's emphasis on distance control and point scoring represents a fundamental softening of the sport, a move away from the visceral, punishing battles that defined greatness in his time. Let's hear from a boxer universally recognized as the real deal, Evander Holyfield. Compiling one of the most remarkable careers in boxing history, Evander Holyfield became the only 4-time heavyweight champion while demonstrating an almost supernatural ability to overcome adversity and adapt his style. Starting his professional journey as a cruiserweight, where he became undisputed champion, Holyfield then moved up to heavyweight and engaged in legendary wars against the likes of Riddick Bowe and Mike Tyson, including the infamous 1997 bout where Tyson bit off a piece of his ear. His 44-10-2 record with 29 knockouts doesn't fully capture the heart, skill, and tactical intelligence he brought to every fight. Holyfield has identified several concerning trends in how modern fighters develop and compete. He attributes many current deficiencies to fundamental changes in amateur boxing programs, particularly the age at which fighters begin their training. I started boxing at the age of 8, so I learned the skill of boxing. When people start at 17 or 18, it's all about knocking out, he explained, highlighting how early comprehensive training in footwork, defense, and ring generalship creates more complete fighters. He observed that many contemporary boxers lack the fundamental skills to make necessary adjustments during fights, relying instead almost exclusively on power without the fitness or technical proficiency to adapt when their initial game plan fails. They just go for power, but they don't have the fitness. They don't have the skill. A lot of times they don't know how to make the adjustments that's necessary to overcome mistakes they may make, Holyfield noted with concern. Beyond technical and developmental issues, Holyfield has also been vocal about business and regulatory concerns threatening the sport's integrity. He strongly opposed proposed revisions to the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, warning that this new bill is bad for boxing, bad for fighters, bad for fans, as it would potentially blur the lines between promoters and sanctioning bodies, consolidating power in ways that could exploit fighters. For Holyfield, who came up in an era where fighters had to face mandatory challengers regardless of the business implications, modern boxing's increasing emphasis on cherry-picking opponents and avoiding career-threatening matchups represents a betrayal of what the sport should stand for, proving yourself against the absolute best, regardless of risk. Moving on to the baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson. Forever immortalized as Iron Mike, Tyson exploded onto the boxing scene in the mid-1980s with a combination of devastating power, lightning-fast hand speed, and psychological intimidation that the heavyweight division had never quite seen before. Becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history at just 20 years old, Tyson's peekaboo style, taught to him by the legendary Cus D'Amato, allowed him to slip punches with remarkable agility for a heavyweight and then explode forward with hooks and uppercuts that could end a fight in seconds. His 50-6 record with 44 knockouts from 1985 to 2005 tells only part of the story. At his peak, Tyson was perhaps the most feared fighter in boxing history, destroying opponents with a ferocity that seemed almost primordial. When reflecting on modern boxing, Tyson has been remarkably candid about what he sees as its fundamental problems. His primary concern centers on fighter inactivity, the stark contrast between how frequently he fought during his prime and how seldom today's champions enter the ring. My only problem with modern boxing is that fighters are not as active as they were in older generations, Tyson explained, referencing how he won 10 title fights in just 32 months, while contemporary champions might fight once or twice a year. This reduced activity, in Tyson's view, prevents fighters from developing the rhythm, timing, and experience that come only from regular competition against high-level opposition. Tyson has also addressed what he perceives as a fundamental shift in fighter mentality. Maybe I'm just a Neanderthal. Boxing is different from when I boxed. Those guys are businessmen, he acknowledged, recognizing that modern fighters approach the sport with different priorities and motivations than he did. For Tyson, who came from absolute poverty and viewed boxing as literal survival, the sport demanded a level of discipline and sacrifice that seems increasingly rare in an era of guaranteed purses and long-term promotional contracts.
It's still a good sport. I still think it's a good sport. It's just the officials that make the sports bad. They give these horrible decisions and these mismatched fights.
Beyond fighter mentality, Tyson has been scathing about boxing's organizational problems, particularly questionable officiating and deliberately mismatched fights designed to build records rather than test abilities.
They never put guys that are equally matched to fight when they know it's going to be a competitive fight. That's what people want to see. They don't even have to be big name fighters. They just want to see competitive fighting.
Next up, the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the modern era, Lennox Lewis. He compiled a remarkable 41-2-1 record with 32 knockouts from 1989 to 2003, defeating legends including Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, and Vitaly Klitschko along the way. Born in London but raised in Canada, Lewis brought a chessmaster's strategic approach to the heavyweight division, combining a devastating jab with tremendous power and an ability to adjust his tactics mid-fight that set him apart from many of his contemporaries. What made Lewis particularly special was his versatility. He could box beautifully from distance, fight effectively and close, and demonstrate remarkable ring intelligence in difficult situations. When Lewis reflects on modern heavyweight boxing, particularly among British fighters, he draws a clear distinction between his approach and what he observes today. I look at myself as being a different kind of British heavyweight. I didn't mind going to other people's backyards and fighting them, Lewis explained, subtly critiquing contemporary champions like Anthony Joshua, who have built their reputations primarily through home soil defenses. This willingness to fight anywhere, against anyone, was a hallmark of Lewis's career. He avenged both of his defeats, traveled to hostile territories, and never shied away from dangerous opponents, even when the business side of boxing might have suggested otherwise. Lewis has also offered tactical assessments of current fighters that reveal his detailed understanding of what makes a complete heavyweight. In discussions about fighters like Oleksandr Usyk, Lewis has confidently stated he would have advantages, particularly in clinch, work, and through the use of uppercuts, techniques that he mastered but which many modern heavyweights seem less adept at employing. The debate over Lewis's legacy often centers on whether he's underrated or overrated compared to current champions, with some arguing that he faced past prime opponents, while others contend that his victories over Tyson, Holyfield, and Klitschko, regardless of their ages, demonstrate a level of achievement that today's heavyweights have yet to match. What's undeniable is that Lewis represented a complete package of size, skill, power, and ring intelligence that set a standard contemporary fighters struggle to reach, moving ahead to a legend who will forever be known as the Easton Assassin, Larry Holmes. He compiled an impressive 69-6 record with 44 knockouts from 1973 to 2002, defending the heavyweight title 20 consecutive times from 1978 to 1985. Often fighting in the massive shadow cast by Muhammad Ali, Holmes nevertheless carved out his own legacy through technical excellence, particularly his masterful jab, widely considered one of the greatest offensive weapons in heavyweight history. His systematic dismantling of opponents through superior boxing fundamentals made him one of the most underappreciated appreciated great champions, a fighter whose cerebral approach and technical perfection deserve far more recognition than they typically receive. Holmes has been extraordinarily blunt in his assessment of today's heavyweight elite, offering critiques that pull no punches whatsoever. Regarding Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, and Deontay Wilder, the three fighters who dominated heavyweight boxing through much of the 2010s, Holmes delivered a devastating verdict. They don't have any skills. The fighters today are not the fighters of yesteryear. He's been particularly critical of Fury, noting that while the British giant used to have excellent skills, but he's not using them now, instead relying more on size advantages and durability than on the technical boxing ability he demonstrated earlier in his career.
The fighters today is not the fighters that were when I fought. You know, we fought the top 10. We didn't duck nobody.
Holmes has gone so far as to propose a size limit for the heavyweight division, arguing that the emergence of gigantic fighters like Fury has created an unfair competitive landscape where skill becomes secondary to sheer physical dimensions. In his view, the heavyweight division of his era featured fighters who relied on superior technique, movement, and ring craft, rather than simply being larger than their opponents. Holmes has repeatedly emphasized that fighters like Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, and himself would easily defeat today's champions because they possessed a fundamental understanding of boxing that seems increasingly rare.
They don't have no skills.
Really, you don't think so?
No, they can't. Listen, you got to punch here. No guys punch. They throw punches like this for a jab. You don't throw punches like that. Straight, bang, bang, with the jab. You got to have that out there like that. And you guess what? You can't hit me with that right hand because this hand protect me.
Up next is the lanky Detroit destroyer with a devastating right hand, Thomas Hearns. He compiled a 61-5-1 record with 48 knockouts from 1977 to 2006, winning world titles in 5 different weight divisions. Standing 6'1" with an incredible 78-inch reach, Hearns brought a unique combination of height, reach, and explosive punching power to the welterweight division that made him a nightmare matchup for virtually anyone. His participation in the legendary Four Kings era, alongside Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran, and Sugar Ray Leonard, produced some of the most memorable and brutal fights in boxing history, including his 1985 war with Hagler that lasted just 3 rounds, but is still considered one of the greatest fights ever. When asked about modern welterweights compared to those of his era, Hearns didn't hesitate in his assessment.
How would you rate the welterweights that are around now, like Manny, Pacquiao, compared to yourself and other great welterweights from your era? Be honest.
No, I like Pacquiao, and I like Mayweather, but compared to me and Ray Leonard and the guys that we grew up fighting, I don't think it's no comparison.
Hearns firmly believes that the welterweights of the 1980s were simply tougher, more resilient, and more willing to engage in the kind of brutal back-and-forth exchanges that defined greatness in that weight class. The fights in his era weren't just about winning on points or maintaining an undefeated record. They were about proving your toughness in the most unforgiving circumstances imaginable. The physicality that Hearns brought to his fights was extraordinary even by the standards of his own era. His ability to hurt opponents with single punches, combined with his surprisingly effective inside fighting given his height, made him arguably the most complete welterweight of his generation. When Hearns looks at modern welterweights, he sees fighters who are undoubtedly skilled and athletic, but who lack the kind of proven durability and willingness to engage in sustained warfare that characterized the best fighters of his time. In Hearns' view, the emphasis has shifted away from proving your toughness in extended battles and toward more calculated, business-oriented approaches to the sport. Moving ahead to the Golden Boy, who captured world titles in 6 different weight divisions, Oscar De La Hoya. He compiled a 39-6 record with 30 knockouts from 1992 to 2008 before transitioning into his current role as a promoter with Golden Boy Promotions. De La Hoya represented the perfect blend of skill, power, and marketability. A fighter who could box beautifully when necessary, but also engage in thrilling exchanges that kept fans on the edge of their seats. His willingness to take on all comers, including legendary fighters like Felix Trinidad, Shane Mosley, and Floyd Mayweather, established him as one of the defining stars of 1990s and early 2000s boxing. As a promoter, De La Hoya has had a front-row seat to the business side of modern boxing, and his assessments have been increasingly critical of what he sees as fundamental problems with how the sport operates today. Following the much-criticized Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul exhibition, De La Hoya didn't hold back his disgust.
Did you stay up to watch Mike Tyson and Jake Paul?
I actually did. I actually watched it, and I felt, while watching it, I felt disgusted at Jake Paul for putting this together, knowing that Tyson was 58 years old.
He went further, suggesting the fight appeared scripted, stating, "I do believe it was scripted, and I believe that Tyson was certainly held back. Look, I'm a fighter and I can see it." But De La Hoya's critique extends far beyond celebrity exhibitions. He's been adamant that the core problem with modern boxing lies with the fighters themselves.
Fighters are not daring to be great, and we are stuck accepting mediocre fights.
Come on, man.
Look, being a fighter and now a promoter, knowing the ins and outs because I'm in it, I have to say it's the fighters who are killing the sport.
De La Hoya has pointed to his own era, when fighters like himself, Arturo Gatti, and Mickey Ward were willing to take risks and engage in genuine wars, as the standard modern fighters should aspire to, but consistently fall short of reaching. While he's acknowledged that figures like Jake and Logan Paul can be beneficial for boxing's visibility, he maintains that authentic greatness comes only from facing legitimate challenges and risking your reputation and health against the absolute best available opposition. Finally, on the list is a legend who is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters in boxing history, Sugar Ray Leonard. He compiled a 36-3-1 record with 25 knockouts from 1977 to 1997, capturing world titles in 5 different weight divisions and participating in some of the sport's most memorable encounters. With his lightning-fast hands, dazzling footwork, and charismatic personality, Leonard became the face of boxing during the late 1970s and 1980s, earning both critical acclaim and massive commercial success through his wars with Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. Leonard has been forthright about what he sees as a fundamental decline in the quality and excitement of modern boxing. In his assessment, his era in boxing was simply better because there were more 50-50 fights back then, making the sport of boxing more exciting. The concept of 50-50 fights, matchups where both fighters have roughly equal chances of winning, represented the pinnacle of competitive boxing, creating the kind of dramatic tension and uncertainty that drew millions of viewers and made fighters into cultural icons. Leonard has repeatedly called for a return to having one champion per division, believing that the proliferation of multiple sanctioning bodies and therefore multiple champions in each weight class has diluted the meaning of being a world champion and confused casual fans about who truly deserves recognition as the best. Beyond competitive concerns, Leonard has also addressed boxing's declining popularity relative to mixed martial arts, acknowledging that the sport faces serious challenges in maintaining relevance with younger audiences. He's been particularly vocal about the need for boxing to better address its inherent health risks, particularly the long-term neurological damage that can result from years of absorbing punches to the head. Leonard's emotional reaction to the possibility of boxing being removed from the Olympics highlighted his deep concern about the sport's future and its ability to continue developing new talent through amateur programs. Throughout his post-retirement commentary, Leonard has emphasized the importance of total dedication and authentic effort, qualities he believes are increasingly rare in an era where financial security can be achieved without necessarily facing the most dangerous opponents or taking the career-defining risks that separated good fighters from truly great ones. These aren't the complaints of bitter old men unable to accept that time moves forward. Rather, they represent thoughtful assessments from individuals who lived and breathed boxing at its highest level. Only time will tell whether future generations of fighters will heed the warnings and wisdom of these legends, or whether boxing will continue down its current path. If you enjoyed this video, click on the ones showing on your screen to enjoy more.